In today's conversation, we're going to be looking at how trust architects are creating a race to the top and what that means toward creating a sustainable future. We're thrilled to be joined by Pyx CEO, Zeus, who will share his insights and perspectives. So, with that, let's get started.
Thanks, Dan. Uh, Welcome, everybody. I'm going to be talking about how trust architects are creating a race to the top. In today's session, we're going to use our standard format. We're going to do a bit of an intro around creating that race to the top. Then we're going to really focus on the business side of trust architecture. And because the race to the top is all about the commercial value that trust architecture creates. We'll touch on, as we always do, policy and standards and technology as well, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So, the um, key challenge that many organizations are facing is that business complexity is increasing. And what we're seeing in the global marketplace are demands are increasing on businesses as they try and um, execute their business, as they access markets, and as they collaborate with their customers. Um, but at the top level, the world is also facing sustainability challenges, and regulators and markets are responding to those sustainability challenges. So one of the key ones that we all are aware of is the need to reduce carbon across the globe, and the Paris Accord, and net zero by 2050, and all of these targets that are coming into play are starting to create meaningful incentives for sustainable behaviors. So market access requirements, increasing demands from investors and consumers. Um, the challenge, though, is that those same incentives also encourage more greenwashing. So, to maintain the value of the incentives, we need to combat greenwashing through transparency at the scale that digitization allows, but there are a lot of challenges to achieve supply chain transparency at scale. So that's why Recommendation 49 has been approved at the UN, ECE, and UNC Fact plenary just last month. But what this creates, another way of looking at this is by thinking about it as either a race to the top or a race to the bottom. So in a race to the bottom, and that's basically the state of the world today, it's easy to fake claims about the products and services that you're offering. And as a result, market and consumer confidence drops. And so if there's no, um, if you can't differentiate the product based on the claims that are the sustainability claims, you don't want to pay more for a product that says it has high quality sustainability or environmental information, because you can't tell the difference between somebody who's claiming that they're doing the right thing versus somebody who's not. And that low confidence means that there's no price differential. So if people aren't willing to pay for more, then then if you can't prove it, then people won't pay more. And then businesses that are trying to differentiate on sustainability or environmental activities um, are at a competitive disadvantage in the market because it does take resources to invest in sustainable practices and environmental practices and reducing carbon load. Um, Businesses that invest in those things, if they're not able to prove their differentiation, that means that there's no price differential, and it means that they must fake claims to be competitive. And it creates a sort of spiral to the bottom. On the other side, if it's hard to fake claims, uh, consumer and market confidence improves in the claims that are being made, and therefore higher prices are justified. Now, I don't think we're talking about massively different prices, But we do, if there is a price differential in the market, then organizations that are investing in the sustainable and environmental and governance activities can realize a differentiated market position. And that differentiated market position might be higher prices, or it might be preferential access to markets. And then businesses can compete on claims and make it harder and harder to fake those claims, which creates that race to the top. And what we see is that our trust architecture community is creating that race to the top. And what we just described is architecting a trust for a better world. And what we see is that a future where people, businesses, and communities are most successful because they're making the world better. That they're creating that race to the top so that the businesses that are making the most money are also the businesses that are making the world better. And that takes some strategic coalescence around business, policy, and tech to make that happen. And that's what we see the role of trust architects doing in creating this race to the top. And that's why our trust architecture series always focuses on sort of our three core topics of business, policy, and technology. And like I said at the agenda side, we're very much focused today primarily on the business side, but we will touch on the policy and tech side as well. So this is kind of a visual. So the trust architects are the pit crew, the course designers, the engineers, the rule setters of the race to the top. So it is not necessarily a foregone conclusion that we're going to create this race. And so a trust architect's role in the world is to help build the scenarios, the business case, the value propositions, the policy frameworks, the technology stacks that actually create an environment where the businesses that are doing the right thing for the world, doing the right thing for their people, doing the right thing for the environment are actually making more money. And so that creates that self-referential or that feedback loop that makes the world a better place. And that's what we see trust architects doing. And so what activities do we do to create that race to the top? So business, policy, and tech. So we're going to kind of go into that in a little bit more detail now. So from a business case perspective, one of the key things is viewing compliance as a competitive differentiator. And so the key thing is the by creating business cases for a better world, we need to do that at a number of different tiers. So in national and regional governments, so economy-wide benefits, structural comparative advantage, the key guidance is recommendation 49. And so we often work with government agencies, departments, regional governments, agencies, and departments in building out the policy ecosystem for their national or regional infrastructure to take advantage of this race to the top. And the key thing to focus on here is what is an economy's structural comparative advantage? What aspects of the local economy is different and unique that can be taken advantage of to help the government's citizens be more successful in a global marketplace. And so, for example, in Australia, we have a number of comparative advantages. The two obvious ones are the sun shines a lot, and we have a lot of things we can dig out of the ground. And so, in a world that's shifting to a low carbon model, how do we take advantage of those? And one of our local economists has articulated that creating green steel is a natural comparative advantage of the Australian economy because steel is a high carbon production process. And if we can take the sun and convert it into finished steel products, we can ship low carbon steel overseas, which means that the low carbon steel has embedded carbon benefits as part of that. And so that's an example of a national comparative advantage that a particular economy has. And so what a business case for a national or regional government is designed to do is help realize that national or regional comparative advantage. Um, from a community and industry association perspective, the benefits need to focus on member needs. So, what is the industry level differentiators, and what does being part of your community or industry association's benefit, like what is the benefit that you get from being part of that community or industry association? And how do we make sure that people who are part of that community or industry association realize those benefits? So that the value is shared across members. And the key guidance or tool for that business case is the UNTP Community Activation Plan. Um, and the final one is the business case for actual businesses implementing. And this is where the real value is realized because these are real economic outputs, where the first two are sort of the structure of the economy, or sort of influence the structure of the economy. And the key idea here is how you gain or maintain market access by simplifying how your customers access information about the products or services that you sell. And the idea here is you do that by sharing digital product passports or digital facility records about your products and services or about the facilities that you build that on and build that out from attaching high quality information about the products and services that you connect to. And basically, one of the things that we see is that a lot of organizations are already doing quite a lot um, of high quality compliance or sustainability or governance activities. They're just unable to demonstrate that as part of their product. And so what we see UNTP doing is simplifying how they realize value from what they're already doing. And so what we see, and if we again use Australia as our example, the key um, one of the key strengths of the Australian economy is strong social and governance rule of law elements. And sometimes we describe this economy as a bit of a nanny state, but there is high quality oversight of Australian economic activity. And as a result, how does a business take advantage of that, of the fact that they're already doing that, so that their customers can realize the benefit of that high quality supply? And that's really where we see um, attaching high quality proof of that compliance means that customers can recognize that value easier and more simply by reading that proof in the form of product passports and conformity credentials. Um, and it requires a act collaboration across sort of member organizations and regulators to make that happen. Um, and the core idea here is we turn that compliance work into verifiable, discoverable data. And so the one example of this is I was talking to at a national steel leaders event a couple of months ago, where the CEO of a major steel manufacturer was describing their work program around creating the greenest steel in the industry. And I sort of mentioned the steel example a little earlier in the presentation, but really the idea is that if we can turn sort of sunlight into low carbon steel, then Australia has a comparative advantage in production steel in Australia. And there's a lot of technical hurdles and scientific work and innovation that needs to occur in achieving that vision. Um, and that this leader was sort of describing that technical and innovation work program that he was engaging in. And the statement he made was, um, and if we were, so the statement he said is, we're already doing this. And if we can't continue to do this and make a business out of this, we will lose steel manufacturing in Australia. And so the message to the leaders, the industry group was, we have a comparative advantage, but if we can't but if we can't achieve or realize that comparative advantage, we'll actually lose the entire industry. And the point I made sort of after that is that if you can't prove that you're sort of investing in that um, comparative differentiation, in that in the work that you're already doing, if you can't prove that work in a verifiable and discoverable way, we will also lose that. And that goes back to our sort of race to the bottom case that we made before. And that's sort of how we describe this process. So the other kind of key idea here is the hard work is already happening. Most organizations are already doing, or most organizations that we're going to be talking to that are interested in trust architecture and collaborating on this race to this top are already doing this hard work. And they're actually being penalized because from a sustainability reporting perspective in big corporates, what organizations are often doing are using industry averages to do their sustainability reporting. And so they're asking, they understand that their supply chain is an important input to their sustainability outcomes, particularly scope three. But when they try to get information about it to prove it, they find that it's too hard, and then they revert back to industry averages. The challenge with this is that by reverting back to the industry averages, it's actually rewarding the people that are not investing in making these changes in the other side of the economy, and or sort of the people who are not making the investments in sustainability or scope three emissions or decreasing carbon or increasing sustainability outcomes. And therefore, um, the people who are actually subject to this reporting and who are interested in making this change are actually inadvertently rewarding the people that are slowing down the change they're trying to reinforce. And so, what a trust architect helps does is simplify that sort of leader's ability to realize and differentiate their supply based on that high quality information. Um, and so turning a compliance burden to an edge, and basically, I think this relatively duplicates the last slide. So I'm going to skip ahead. Um, and so the core idea is in a race to the top, organizations that can prove they're doing the right thing, sustainably, ethically, and transparently will win trust faster, unlock market access sooner, and build resilience that others can't match. Bringing it back to the policy settings. So the thing that we kind of said is that at the beginning of the conversation, so bringing it back to policy is these policy changes are already occurring. And so helping our businesses, our regulators, our industry associations understand the broader ecosystem means that um, the that trust architects can help organizations make the case in the markets and access and in places they're already working. So things like deforestation regulations, the AASB in Australia, the sustainable tariffs situation, Inflation Reduction Act. All of these are different ecosystems of um, um, policies that are coming in. And what Recommendation 49 is intended to provide is this idea that in order for businesses to efficiently meet these standards coming in, they need high quality information about their supply chain. And that means that they can share that information effectively and realize the benefits of the work they're already doing. And so the key kind of idea here from the transparency at scale piece is, or the fundamental components are is the policy to nations is transparency means that it's easier for your businesses to realize value from your comparative differentiation. And then the implementation tools that support that are the United Nations Transparency Protocol, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. And then there's two new projects, which is the Global Trust Registry project, which is how do we know how do we verify the identity of the organizations that are sharing this information with us? And VCs for trade are how do we take the core UN vocabularies and expand them not just to sustainability language, but also to the language of trade. Um, and so these are kind of the ecosystem components they're doing. And as I mentioned earlier, recommendation 49 was approved last month. Transparency at scale, fostering sustainable value chains. Um, and that is the policy document. And then UNTP is the implementation of that policy document. It's the implementation instrument of that policy document, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Trust architects leverage tools to accelerate value. So these are kind of our guiding principles of things like UNTP, but not only. So the key things is data interoperability. How do we make sure that information flows between supply chain actors? Semantics, how do we make sure it's understandable? So anybody can send ones and zeros across the network. How do we make sense of that so that it is valuable to our business and to our customers' businesses? How do we leverage existing systems and processes to connect with data interoperability? How do we do secure data exchange? And so these are kind of the frameworks for that. And then if we kind of look at UNTP, this is a complex slide, which is the core architecture of UNTP. And so one of the challenges we face is when we talk about this is UNTP is there's uh, 12 three-letter acronyms on this 11 no 12 three-letter acronyms on this page, and all of them are a component of UNTP, and that feels like a lot to get your head around. The now and so and it is a lot to get your head around. The One of the key things that we sort of articulate is that, well, trade and supply chains are complex. It's a very complex part of our economic ecosystem, and we all kind of started to see that in real time a few years ago with the pandemic and sort of the impact of the pandemic on supply chains. It kind of made it a little bit more obvious that there's a lot of complexity in supply chains. Um, and so what this architecture and protocol has been designed to do is not solve the complexity of supply chains, because that has a huge number of businesses and um, business practice and existing investments embedded in it. It's designed to simplify the digitization of supply chains. And when we look at that, this is the simplest way we've identified to do that. And each of these components is a simplification of something that is already occurring in supply chains. So um, at the top level on the identity resolver, we already have product identifiers on most of our supply chain activities. And so how do we make it easier to find more information about those products? Well, we do that through this identity resolution piece. From a data perspective, people already share information about their products. How do we standardize that? Well, we standardize that through standardizing the semantics of a digital product passport. We already share information about where things are produced. We now standardize that using a digital facility record. We already have a whole ecosystem of third-party verification of standards, and that's called that's the conformity ecosystem. And so we have a digital conformity credential, which is designed to make that easier for people to attach to their product passports and facility records. And so basically what we're trying to do is say, what already exists in a complex ecosystem, and how do we simplify and standardizing what already exists so that it's easier for businesses and folks to realize value? And another complex slide, but what the key thing that we want to sort of focus on is the common pattern that's occurring at each actor and facility location. Each actor publishes their product data about their products each step along the way, and each and the and connect that to the facility where that was manufactured at. And so this pattern of publishes data about the product, linked to where it was made is repeated at every business step in the supply chain. And that idea of publish data about the product, and that's in the form of a digital product passport at the facility it was made, that repeating pattern is what creates the data ecosystem that means that businesses can um, out compete on the information they attach to the product and facilities and create that race to the top.
So just wanted to thank everyone for being an active part of today's discussion. We hope everyone found the session valuable and encourage everyone to stay connected with us in our trust architecture community at chat.pyx.io. Look forward to seeing you at our next webinar in 2 weeks on August 26th, where we'll talk about how trust architecture takes a protocol over platform approach, which is super important and a nuanced topic to understand. So I hope we'll see everyone back for that. Until then, thank you for your commitment to building trust and transparency in the supply chain. Thanks, everyone.